Hey, and welcome to... Oh, sorry, just a sec. Right, where were we? Oh yeah, simulating text messages. If you're needing a text message comp for a project right away, or you're just not interested in building your own, I'm splitting this video into two sections. First, I'll show you how it all works, which should be enough for you to get going on your own projects. If you want to go straight to how to build your own, then jump ahead to 4 minutes and 28 seconds. I'll start again and take you through the process so you can recreate it, make a much better version, travel back in time, and send a takedown request. Sounds fair? Cool. Here we are in After Effects, and I've got a normal 1080p comp with a nested comp inside. Nothing really special here, but I've set the anchor point at the bottom of the nested comp. The nested comp is tall, but messages pop up from the bottom, so kinda makes sense to me that that's where I would position it. This nested comp can be tracked and masked and all the usual good stuff. When we open the messages comp itself, you can see each message has its own comp. This gives you loads of control for each message, and I'll show you that in a moment. All the positions and opacities are controlled via this null layer labelled controller, and here you can make a bunch of changes. You can turn off the speech tails, set the font colours, and set the message colours. But the big control you have here is over the timing. The Show Messages slider sets which message to display. If I check the typing checkbox, the lowest message disappears to be replaced by the still typing animation. If we take a look at the timeline, Show Messages starts with a hold keyframe at 0, then message 1 appears. Then with the next set of keyframes, the slider moves up to 2, but I've checked the typing checkbox, so we can see the other person is typing but not finished yet. At the next keyframe, the typing checkbox returns to off and the message appears. Now for the messages themselves. As I said, each message is its own comp. I can either unlock the layer and double click to access it, or I can find the messages folder in the project panel. When I open message 1, you'll see 4 layers. A controller layer, which you'll use to set the height of the message box. I did consider using code to auto resize this, but to be honest that wouldn't have allowed for emojis or pictures, so instead you just have to resize it here. And there's also a checkbox to say if the message is a sent message or a reply. The text layer is where you paste your text with a text box already drawn out, so it should word wrap if you type or paste into it. Then in message 1, I've already added an emoji pre-comp. There are 844 emojis in this pre-comp. To help you find the right one, I have also made this comp Emoji Picker. Here you can quickly spin through all of them, and when you find the right one, make a note of the number, and then jump back to the message comp, expand the master properties on the timeline and enter the number, and then position the emoji where you want, and there's nothing stopping you dragging in more and doing the same. Now, if you want to add a picture as a message instead of text, turn off the text layer, drag your picture into the bottom of the comp to be underneath the background, and set the track matte to alpha, and adjust the controller's height until the whole image is visible. Simple? Simple. There's just one last step you need to do. When you expand the description to get the download link, make sure you also click the like or subscribe buttons. This comp doesn't technically require it, but you'll get a warm fuzzy feeling every time you use it in your videos. The rest of the video is going to talk about how to make this. If you are hanging around, fantastic. If not, I hope you find this project useful. Thanks for watching. Wait for it. Have the others gone? Miserable freeloaders couldn't even help get my watch time up. Let's just get started. First off, I'm going to make the parent comp. This will be the comp which contains all the messages. I've made it 1000 pixels wide by 2000 pixels tall. Sort of phone screen proportions. And now I'm going to go to Layer, New, Null Object. Hit enter and rename this to Controller. And now we're going to add a metric ton of expression controls. Go to Effect, Expression Controls, Slider Control. Make sure the effect is selected, hit enter and rename this to Show Messages Up To, or similar. Now go to Effect, expression controls, checkbox control. Rename this to typing, and then expression controls, color control. Call this scent color. Make sure this effect is selected and go to Edit, Duplicate, and make 3 copies. Rename them Scent Font Color, Reply Color, Reply Font Color. I used a screenshot of iMessage to get the colors. I set Send to hex code 2998FC, set the font to all Fs, which is white. The reply hex code is E9E9EB, and the reply font is 40401. By setting these here, I'll later link them to the messages, allowing me to change them for all the message colors. And finally for this bit, go to Effect, Expression Controls, Checkbox. And name this one to Show Tick. Apple's messages have a very distinctive little speech bubble tick thing, but you might be wanting to make yours more generic, so I'll be making the tick, or whatever you call it, I'll be making it something that you can turn off and on. Now let's make our first message comp. Go to Composition, New Composition. Make it 700 pixels wide by 1000 pixels tall. Call it Message 1. The number is especially important for the expressions we'll be adding later. And After Effects will do a handy auto-incrementing thing when we duplicate the comp too. Create a new null and call it Controller as well. Hit P to expose the position properties, and then hold Alt and click on the stopwatch and type square bracket 350, 0, close square bracket. We'll be parenting things off this, and we don't want to accidentally move it, so if you drag it by mistake, this expression will force it to remain in the middle top of the comp. Now, add a new slider control and call it Height. Right click on the amount and choose Edit Value, and set the min amount to 100 and the max to 1000. This makes it easy to adjust when using the comp later. Add a checkbox and name it Reply. Make sure the layer isn't selected and choose the rounded rectangle tool in the mask tools and draw a new rectangle. Doesn't matter about the size, we'll set that in the settings. Rename this Bubble and drag it to the bottom of the comp. Parent it to the controller null and hit P and set the position to 0. Then hit A and do the same for the anchor value. Expand it on the timeline, highlight the stroke and delete it, and in rectangle path set roundness to 20. Alt click on the size stopwatch and type x equals 640 semicolon. Y equals, and use the pick whip to link to the controller's height value, semicolon, square brackets x, y. On the rectangle path's position property, alt click and type x equals 0 semicolon, y equals minus 100 plus, and pick whip again to the controller's height value, divided by 2, semicolon, square brackets x, y. One last position to adjust. Expand the rectangle's transform settings. Those aren't the same as the layer's transform settings. And zero out the anchor values and set the position to be 0 and 100. And adjusting the height controller sees our bubble expand from the top. Hit enter on the fill settings and rename it to Send. And making sure it's selected, go to Edit, Duplicate, and rename this to Reply. And then in the comp's timeline at the top, right click and choose Undock. Drag this timeline up so you can see the messages comp. And now use the pick whip to link the bubble's fill color to the scent color. And do the same for the reply. Drag the timeline back. And in the Sense Fill Opacity, alt click and type if brackets and use the pick whip to link to the controller's reply checkbox, equals equals 0, close brackets, open curly brackets, 100, close curlies, else, open curlies, 0. And now for the tick. Making sure the bubble layer is selected, draw a small rectangle. Hit enter and rename this to tick. Expand it on the timeline, and on rectangle path right click and choose convert to Bezier path. And using the delete vertex tool, remove the top points from the mask until we are left with these 3. Switch to the pen tool and click off the path, and then in the timeline, select it again so that we can see each point deselected. Click on the top one, and use the Bezier handles to re-angle the shape like this. Then drag it above the middle point. Click on the leftmost point and drag it lower. So we get this speech bubble tail shape-ish. Delete the stroke and fill, and then in the original rectangle, hold Ctrl and select both send and reply. Hold Ctrl again and tap D to duplicate both settings. Remember, these have expressions already on them. And drag these both into the tick space. And in the tick's transform settings, make sure anchor is set to 0, alt click on position and type x equals 0 semicolon, y equals -50 plus, and use the pick whip to link to the rectangle path's y size, square brackets x, y. If your tick isn't over on the left hand side, make sure all the path points are selected and drag it over. So After Effects will move the shape, but the path is set to where you want. Now to flip it. Hit S to expose the layer's scale property. Alt click on the stopwatch and type if brackets, and use the pick whip to link to the controller's reply checkbox value, equals equals 1, close brackets, open curly brackets, square brackets, -100, comma 100, close square brackets, close curly brackets, else, open curlies, square brackets, 100, comma 100, close squares and curlies. So we flip the scale of the width when we click the checkbox. Cool. You can padlock the shape layer now, we don't want to mess with it again. Click on the text tool and draw a text box. Make sure it's the full height of the comp and leave space on both sides to accommodate the flipping of the speech bubble. I've got my text set to Arial regular, 50 point, and line spacing also set to 50 point. Parent this layer to the null layer too, although it shouldn't really matter. In the timeline, expand the layer until you can see the animate button, and choose Fill Color RGB. Rename Animator 1 to Send, but you cannot add a second fill. Instead, make sure Send is selected, hold Ctrl and tap D to duplicate it, and rename this to Reply. Ha! I beat you, After Effects! No, don't threaten to crash, you win! View. Undock the comp again, and use the pick whips to link Send and Reply font colors to the main comp's controllers. And on Send's range selector's end, alt click on the stopwatch and type if brackets, pick whip to the controller's reply checkbox. Wow, that checkbox is doing a lot of work for us. Equals equals 0, close brackets, open curlies, 100, close curlies, else, open curlies, 0, close curlies. And this time we need to add the same expression for the reply font color. Just change the equals equals 1 to 0. Sweet! We're on page 12 already. Although, we're more than halfway done. Emojis next. I found this DeviantArt project by either Shafi Quasman from the README or Kyrie Dark Toxic from the file names. Either way, I signed up for an account and downloaded this treasure trove. Each file was named with incremental numbers, so I imported them as an image sequence into After Effects. The emojis are about twice the size I want them to be though, and it's not easy to work out which one to use. So let's make a new composition. 60 by 60 pixels. Call it Emojis. And add in the image sequence. Scale down the images to 40%, and then go to Layer, Time, Enable Time Remapping. We want to pick a single frame and hold it. So go to Effect, Expression Controls, Slider Control, and name this something like frame number. Edit the value of this to set the min to 0 and the max to 844. Alt-click on the time remap stopwatch and type math.floor brackets and pick whip to the frame number slider, and after the brackets make sure there's double brackets. Divide by 30, and now the slider can set to any frame in the emoji shows up. Go to Window, Essential Graphics, and select the emoji comp. Name it Emoji, and drag in our slider. Close the window and the emoji comp, and now drag it into our message comp. Expand it on the timeline, and in Master Properties, edit the value to whatever frame you want. And you can do this again and again. For the emoji picker comp, I more or less did the same thing, but I added a text layer, and in the source text added this simple expression, time to frames brackets, which gives me the frame number. So that's one message. Duplicate this a bunch of times in the project panel by selecting it and going to Edit, Duplicate. I initially did 10 but started to worry it was too limited, so doubled them to get 20. And each one has an incremental name, which makes the next bits easier. Add message 1 to the messages comp. Undock message 1 from the timeline so we can see it and the messages comp. And in the messages comp, expand the position properties of message 1, alt-click and add this expression. Obviously use the pick whip here, but I couldn't face saying most of that again. What this is doing is shifting the comp to the left or right side, depending on if it is a sent or replied message. And in the opacities expression area, type show message equals, and use the pick whip to link to the messages controller's show message slider. Semicolon. If brackets show message is greater than or equals 1, close brackets, open curlies. If brackets show message equals 1, and use the pick whip to link to the typing checkbox, equals 1, close brackets, open curlies, 0, close curlies, else, open curlies, 100, close curlies again, else, open curlies, 0, close curlies. So what this is doing is saying that if the show messages slider is 1 or above, check to see if the slider is exactly 1, and check if the typing checkbox is checked. If typing is checked, set the opacity to 0, but if not, set it to 100. And if the messages slider is not 1 or above, set the opacity to 0. In the description below, you'll see there's a link to a text file. It contains quite a long expression full of very similar if statements. Taking a look at the top, first here's a variable for the show messages slider. This just makes less to type. Then total height will become the vertical position of the null layer, which everything will be parented to. It starts at the bottom of the comp, this comp.height. Then here's the if statement for message 1. And what this is saying is that if the message slider is greater than or equal to 1, check to see if the slider is set to 1 and that the typing checkbox is on. And if it is, take off 60 pixels from the total height. But if the typing checkbox is off, take off the height from message 1's slider. Then the if statements repeat all the way to the bottom. To recreate, just make sure the numbers flashing now correspond for each comp. Copy this expression and paste it into the controller's position property. If you named your show message slider something different, you'll need to correct this here with the pick whip. Let's drag in message 2. Open message 1's opacity expression, copy it and paste it into message 2's, and make sure to change the numbers to 2. But for the vertical position, we need to position message 2 underneath position 1, and guess what? Yep, it's another expression. Get message 2's comp timeline undocked and expand the controller's effects. And then back on message 2 in the main comp, alt-click on the position and type reply equals, and use the pick whip to link to message 2's reply checkbox. Semicolon new line. Height equals. I've misspelled height here. Sometimes in programming there are reserved terms such as height, and I wanted to avoid issues. So height equals, and use the pick whip to link to message 1's height slider. Plus, and this is quite clever, this comp.layer brackets index -1 close brackets dot position square brackets 1 plus 30. Then on a new line, if brackets reply equals 0, close brackets open curly brackets, square brackets 300, height, close curlies else open curlies, square brackets 0, height, close curlies. So what this expression is doing is getting the reply status and the height from the message comp directly preceding it, and then setting its position to be that height, plus the position of the layer directly above it, which is the top of that layer plus a small gap of 30 pixels. And now, making sure message 2 is selected, hold Ctrl tap D to duplicate it 18 times. Then select the first duplicate, hold the Alt key and drag in message 3, which replaces it with all the settings intact. Expand position and opacity expressions and update all the relevant numbers, which is these two in position and these two in opacity. And repeat for the other duplicates, one for each message comp. Wow, that's like a lot of expressions. But you end up with a reusable messages comp which can be keyframed to display text messages with emojis and pictures, just like I promised. What am I forgetting? Oh yeah, the typing animation. This one is a lot less work. I drew a small rounded rectangle, copied the tick from one of the messages, and created 3 circles on the same shape layer. Each one's fill capacity was then keyframed to go from light to dark, but offset. When I had the sequence ready, I alt-clicked on the stopwatch and used the expressions library to add loop out brackets type equals quotes cycle, comma, num keyframes equals 4, close brackets. This cycles the keyframes forever, and copied the expression to the other 2 circles. Finally! Yes, finally! On the shape layer's opacity layer, I added this expression. This comp.layer controller .effect typing checkbox times 100, pointing to the controller's typing checkbox. So it turns on when the checkbox is on, which translates as 1 times 100, and when it's off, which is 0, it's 0 times 100 or 0. This is a more efficient expression than the if statements, but I think the if-else is easier to demonstrate what's happening. I'm sure any coders there have been screaming at my inefficiencies. But sometimes teaching is not about the shortest route. All that's left is for you to add the messages comp to a regular comp, set the anchor point to 500 by 2000 so that it's at the bottom. And that's it! Thank you for sticking through this incredibly long tutorial. Yes, that was my lovely cat I used earlier. And if you've watched the other videos in Making Social Media, thank you too. Even though this was our month-long series, I think it's highly likely I'll be adding new tutorials to the playlist, and I'm continuing to release short-form solving tutorials, and there's season 2B of Making Space for the new year. As always, ask in the comments below if you get stuck. There's nothing stopping you downloading the completed project just to check what I've done, and if you do use this in your videos, drop me a link, I'd love to see it.